Hello and welcome. We Are Change Melbourne is here on location at Epic Exhibition Park in Canberra. It's fantastic to be here during this important time in history. Reports of over 200,000 people already here with more on the way. I even bumped into an old buddy from high school that I haven't seen in 20 years. So it's a very special occasion. Everyone's in good spirits, which is sensational to see. People are caring, looking out for one another. It's wonderful. People have travelled long distances to be here. It shows the dedication they have to freedom and protecting this country from tyranny. It's very overwhelming for some. Quite a few are emotional at just what's taking place. But yes, we're campaigning for freedom harder than ever. Hopefully we can get some results. There's a lot of people on horns. There's a lot of people with flags and distributing flyers and hats and banners, people giving speeches. There's something here for everyone. So it's very important. Today we're going on a march to Parliament House that will send a clear statement to the government that we've had enough of the corruption and we want it all to end now. Joining me is PB, a viewer of the We Are Change talk show and a supporter of freedom. It's great to see you down here, standing up for human rights and doing your best. What are your thoughts on today?
It's heartwarming. It really is. It does my soul good. I thought I was a bit alone there for a while, but that's not the case at all.
No. We're seeing a lot of solidarity, a lot of people coming together, and a lot of friendships will be made from this, and people will be looking back 10 years from now saying, I was there, I was at Canberra, we stood up. They'll be telling their grandchildren, won't they?
Yeah, they will. They will be telling their grandchildren, and they'll be telling them about the change that we made, and told like Scott Morrison, what's up? I don't need a jab to go to work. That's just, I don't need it, mate. I don't want it. I'm just a labourer. You know, I'm on the shovel all day, and I'm breathing in dust and in the heat and sweating like a dog. And you want to come along and inject me? Ain't happening.
Yeah. And that's the stance that many people need to take. A lot of people are involved in backbreaking labour. They're doing 12-hour days. They deserve to be treated with respect and courtesy, not be faced with medical corruption and a future that is uncertain because they don't want to comply with tyranny. The requests made from government are very unreasonable, aren't they?
They're unreasonable. They're ridiculous. And we can see it for what it is. We're not stupid. And you ought to listen. You know, open up your ears and your eyes. And just listen and do what we're telling you, and like all of us, like together. Yeah.
Luckily, we haven't seen too much of a police presence today, like we've seen in the past at Victoria. It's very overwhelming what we've seen. The police brutality has been extreme. Hopefully, they keep their distance from us.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully, they do the right thing and stand up for the people instead of the tyranny. Honestly, Scott Morrison and all these politicians, I don't know half of yous, but you don't know me. You divided this country. You divided this country. I look at a photo of my grandfather who's in his war uniform as a young 20-year-old, and he's in my soul right now. He's with me, telling me, Pete, this is wrong. Politicians, you tore us apart. You didn't need to do that. We could have been building hospitals if you wanted to and looking after the elderly. First I heard 2 years ago, it affects the elderly and the vulnerable. Look after them. 98.9% chance of, like, if you did get it, you might die, and you won't go down the road of ivermectin, or just even like you shut down playgrounds. Like, we're not stupid, mate. That's just not on.
Exactly.
Come on, bros.
Exactly, and that's a strong statement you just made. And a lot of the fallen soldiers, people that have hiked the Kokoda Trail, they went to Gallipoli, they fought for future generations to live in peace and prosperity, not be faced under dictatorships and totalitarian regimes. And that's our right. Our taxpayers' money pay for the playgrounds, for the barbecue equipment, for all these facilities. So for them to come and try and take it away, that's downright criminal, isn't it?
Yeah, Mark, it is. We see it for what it is. And you should be ashamed of yourselves. You should hang your head very low. I see you there banging on about cases and making people get things shoved up their nose. And come on, I haven't played your game for 2 years, mate, and I'm fine. So there you go. Hey, there's the evidence.
Yeah, good on you. This is yeah.
Thank this man. I thank this man. He's kept me going. Him and many other people like Mark. So that's about it for me. So have a great day, Aussies. You deserve it. You've put up with shit.
That's very powerful. Thank you very much for coming on the show. So joining me is Errol. What are your thoughts on today? It's very powerful here at Parliament House, isn't it?
It certainly is. It's almost unbelievable. I think we've got 1 million, don't you think?
I think so, and this is going to send a very strong message to the government that we're not going to tolerate this medical corruption any further, will we?
No, we will not. No, we will not. Yep.
And this is a very important time in history. How do you feel about some of the soldiers that went to fight for our freedom, and it's all in vain? It definitely feels that way, doesn't it?
They must be turning in their graves. Yeah.
Hiking up the Kokoda Trail and, risking their life.
Yep.
And now it's a complete disrespect to the fallen soldiers. So we've taken up the initiative. So many people have travelled all across the country to be here. Where did you come from today?
Come from Temora. We're in the seat of Riverina, and Michael McCormack is our member. Was Deputy Prime Minister at one stage, but he really goes all out to celebrate Anzac Day. But what's he doing now?
Yeah, that's it. We need to hold these criminals accountable. They are very psychopathic with the restrictions, with the regulations. We've seen the collapse of small business. It's absolutely awful, isn't it?
It certainly is, yes. And you've suffered with the worst of it in Melbourne. Yes, yep.
Yeah, we've copped the full brunt of it there. Thankfully, we haven't seen any police brutality today. Hopefully they keep their distance.
That's right, yes, yeah, yep, we don't want that, no.
Well, you've shown dedication to your country. You're doing the right thing. Thanks for showing up today.
My pleasure, thank you.
So I'm here with Corey and Dave. It's an amazing day, very powerful. How far have you travelled?
Burmagui, South Coast.
Oh, okay. So quite a few hours.
3 hours.
Yep. That's a great effort. People are travelling far and wide to get here. They're sick of the medical corruption, the tyranny, the
despicable politics that goes on in this country and has done for decades. There's no justice anymore. Our liberties are being stripped. It's despicable. The whole thing is just despicable. We should just tear it down.
Absolutely.
And just find some way to unify everyone so that we can all get along.
100%. And how do you feel about the suppression orders? We have these sexual predators. They've been given immunity to commit these atrocious crimes. Haven't they?
They have, yes, and that they've suppressed now from the public a taxpayer-funded suppression or investigation, and now they've suppressed us from actually looking at it and seeing the findings that they've got, and that's not on.
No, it's disgusting. These creeps, and they're perpetrating evil. There's talks of child trafficking rings in politics. It's all very seedy and very outrageous. We need to expose this. We need these suppression orders ended immediately, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just got to stop. This segregation, it's just tearing our country apart. I mean, what are we doing here? We should be so proud to be all together here, and yet we've got so much division surrounding us. The mainstream media, they honestly, someone
Pure
should
evil.
kick them in the arse kick them in the ass.
Absolutely. The mainstream media have betrayed the public's trust. They suppress crucial information. They don't report the figures accurately of these protests. They say it's only a few hundred, a fringe minority, which is completely false, isn't it?
Well, we know it's propaganda. We know this.
Just look at the numbers today. You know, that tells the story. And we will see that. We'll see that on social media. We'll see that across many platforms. And their lies are slowly and will be revealed.
Yes, we hope to get results, and it's wonderful to see people waking up to this. They see the propaganda, they know it's virtually just another arm of the government and spreading lies and misinformation. You switch on the television, you get 3.5 hours of propaganda. Sanitise, stay indoors. It's mind control, isn't it?
All of our institutions have got this wrong. I mean, there's children, like children are being coerced. You know, children to get vaccinated, coerced by teachers. These are our institutions. They're not. There should be. Take the politics out. What are we doing here? You're educators. Educate. Don't bring in politics to the classroom. That's what we're doing here.
Very well said. It's child abuse on a mass scale, and we're seeing a lot of parents homeschooling their children now.
Oh, I'd take my kids. If I had young kids today, I'd rip them out.
So joining me today is Paul Seals, who has appeared on the We Are Change talk show before. It's a privilege to be able to do an interview in person. Thanks again for coming on the show. What's your take on this whole freedom campaign here at Canberra?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It's good to be with you again, Jeff. And it's hard to believe that was 2 years ago that we did that interview. I was like April 2020 or something, I think it was.
Yes.
Yeah. It's been phenomenal. You know, it's like it's a natural, organic process everything's been happening on a state-by-state basis. And now it's like people have had enough and now it's going to the national level. You know what I mean? And people are coming together and finding each other and connecting and getting to see people. I haven't met you in person. This is the first time. So it's good to meet people in person and catch up and connect. And this is the way communities get created, you know?
Certainly, the atmosphere has been excellent, and people's hospitality, they've been polite and courteous to one another. It's really wonderful to see. And yeah, the attendance here, it hasn't been accurately reported by the mainstream media, as always. They try and suppress those figures. But yeah, there's been so many people turning up and travelling long distances. That shows true dedication to the cause, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the thing as well. I mean, I think probably the numbers are probably actually closer to 1.2 million people, and the media's beat it up, and I think it said it's about 10,000, and said 3 arrests or something and that sort of thing. So I was joking with someone this morning and said, you don't want the mainstream media to be your accountant, Jeff.
That's a good call. Absolutely, they're not to be trusted whatsoever, and
that's part of the conversation to have as well about the narrative that's happening. We had this conversation way back when we called it back at the beginning, and if you sort of start going down the rabbit hole of like normally, whether it's like stuff we've talked about previously or the whole freedom and truth movement about, follow the money, like quid pro quo, like who benefits, right?
Absolutely.
And that's normally where you can actually find the answers. But I just spent 6 months in the US and Mexico.
Wow.
Yeah, got to spend some time with Max Egan, and
Brilliant.
I got to speak at and perform at a couple of events in the US to like thousands of people. Because my last single, Hold the Line's like gone to #1 in the US country charts for the last 2 weeks.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's been pretty
fantastic.
cool.
And you managed to avoid some of the drama here in Australia, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute war zone. And the government is applying all types of dirty tactics. They've even gone as far as to shut down some of the towers so people can't live stream. They did that in Melbourne. It shows they're afraid of the truth getting out, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what happened. We could live stream from about a couple of kilometres out, but when you got close to Parliament House, all the signals all got jammed. You couldn't call, you couldn't live stream, you couldn't do anything. And there's a few people that that just didn't happen to individuals. That happened with everyone within that proximity. But that's what they have the ability to do as far as the telecommunications system's concerned. They can block it, they can jam it. It's happened in countries all over the world when they've had uprising in Arab Springs and all that sort of thing.
Yes, it shows how desperate they are when they have to apply those sort of measures to try and stop people from broadcasting and providing coverage for the whole event. Yes, it just shows how criminal this government is, and a lot of people here are very passionate. They want change, they want freedom restored back to this country, and today a lot of people are being moved on from this campground, and a lot of people are reluctant to leave, and rightfully so, isn't it?
Well, they'll try to move them on, but for some of us that are a little bit older now, we've sort of been around the block a couple of times and been involved with a few movements previously, including like Occupy, and then I was involved with which was also actually, like in hindsight, a social engineering program courtesy of George Soros and the Open Society Foundation and all that sort of thing. But we learnt a lot through that, so there's a lot of things that don't work. But yeah, they're going to try and move people on today, but there's a lot of people who are just going to dig in. And there's a lot of people really committed here to not moving until the mandates are rolled back. With what's happening with the movement, with the convoy movements right across, spread all across the world now, Jeff. All the countries, not only Canada and the US, but Finland, Denmark, Germany, all those countries in the world all go. It's like it's a rolling version of Occupy. That happened in 2011, but we sort of learn a lot through those experiences, and it's about people finding each other, creating community, and taking a stand. And it might get a little bit rough at sometimes, and a lot of people sort of come to these events, like the largest rally in Australia's history. It's a pretty historical moment to be part of, be privileged to be able to witness.
Most certainly, this is a very important moment in history, and we're on the right side of it too. Standing up for future generations, trying to protect our freedom and standing up for human rights. It's really good for your soul and, yeah, for the whole spiritual aspect to it. It's really wonderful, and hopefully people get a lot of good karma in return. Are you confident that we're making strong progress and a powerful impact here?
Oh, definitely. And, the thing is as well, it's, they can try and shut down telecommunications as much as they want, but having spent time in the US and Mexico and places like that, like people are really, like everyone was like watching with, vividly watching what's happening in Australia at the moment and taking an interest in it and like wanting to know about this and wanting to know about that. Is this really happening? And they're seeing all the footage that's stuff of incidents that have happened in Melbourne and what's happening in Western Australia at the moment. And it's not just localised, it's happening on a state level, it's happening on a national level, it's happening on an international and a global level at the moment.
Yes, it's sensational to see a worldwide effort, unity, solidarity, and people from other countries encouraging the movement here and vice versa. It shows just how strong the people are when everyone works together, and even when you're separated by borders and oceans, that doesn't change the fact that people still care for one another, does it?
No, absolutely. And I think that's the thing as well. It's like it's really inspiring with what's happening at the moment. And people are really passionate, with what's happening with in both in Canada and the US. People are really committed to, like, they're not, they got the farmers on board, they got the truckers. They're all getting on board. The families are getting on board. Like, they're all coming together, and they're just not going to be dictated to tyranny. A lot of people have lost their jobs, they've lost their homes. There's breakdowns in families, and ultimately passive resistance and peaceful non-compliance has been the only thing in history that's ever made a difference.
Most certainly, and we have to do what's most effective, and everything has been peaceful here in the camp. I haven't seen any dramas whatsoever, and the government doesn't like that, the old divide and conquer method. They want everyone clashing, but yes, it doesn't go in their favour when everybody's working together, because we've become more powerful, sharing ideas and strategies on how to restore peace and prosperity to this country. There's some smart minds and a lot of people bringing their skills here to the camp. People have been providing assistance when vehicles break down. There's mechanics. There's a lot of smart people here as well that have been affected, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And just like watching people in community come together and, like you say, helping each other out. People donating food and supplies and all that sort of thing. It's been amazing. But it was phenomenal to be there, to walk over the bridge with like over 1 million people yesterday towards. I've never been that close to Parliament House before. It's only my second time to Canberra.
Yes.
It was funny. I flew down and people were like, "You're going to the rally," and I was like, "Yeah." And they said to me, is there any other reason you'd go to Canberra? I'm like, probably not.
True, that's it. The last time I was here, it was in year 5 for a school excursion. So it's fantastic to be back and doing the right thing for the country. I feel proud doing it, and I'm sure you would as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, getting to speak and perform to the crowd yesterday, and like that the volume of people was just phenomenal. The energy and the people, it was like it's just a sea of flags. You know, the Eureka flags, the original red Australian flag, and then being, upside down as well, the signal, international signal for distress.
Yes.
The Indigenous flags, flags from countries all over the world. It's really been phenomenal.
Yes, it most certainly has. And what sort of feedback have you received after your speech?
Yeah, it's been great. I was like last on to close out on the main stage near where the new Parliament House is. But I spoke about a couple of things, and a lot of people are not aware of it as well. It's like I said before about like follow the money. So it's a global narrative that's happened. Australia gets its sort of diluted version of it as well. But when you go down the rabbit hole and get to check out and find out what's happened, you've got like the World Economic Forum that's driving this narrative. You've got Jane Holton, which is a piece of work that's like from Australia. They created representatives from all over the world to go and attend event 201 that we spoke about at that time. That was held in, when it was like in November in the US. I think it was about November 2019 or something or other. But if you get a chance to follow the money, because ultimately that's where it'll. And a lot of other people. I mean, I got to speak and perform on stage with other people like. General Michael Flynn.
Wow.
Yeah, Dr. Rashid Buttar, Dr. David Martin.
Very impressive.
Dr. Peter McCulloch.
Wow.
Yeah, Lee Dundas,
Yes.
human rights attorney. It was really phenomenal just to be able to. There's a lot of people that you've seen that have been very one-dimensional, and you get to meet them in person and hang out and have a chat, and I think it's really amazing. But what I was alluding to is in relation to follow the money. So if you look at there's pretty much maybe 3 companies at the moment, and that's BlackRock.
Yep.
And then there's State Street and Vanguard.
Yes.
They're the 3 of the main companies in the world that are dead set. Like, talk about Agenda 2030. That's the UN agenda, but those 3 companies are hell-bent on owning all the world by 2030. And talking to people and educating them as well, if they don't know what they've got their industry super fund or whatever invested in, it's probably actually invested in those companies. Those 3 companies are all invested in the pharmaceutical companies. They have shares in all the they are majority owners in the mainstream media companies. So they're making money. They're pushing the narrative through the media. So it's actually it becomes very obvious when you start to see it.
That's an accurate description of what's taking place. And when they shut down the small businesses, they look for a redistribution of wealth to some of the bigger outlets like Kmart and, yes, Woolworths. And, when they shut down the smaller businesses, that's how they do it. It's trying to weaken everyone's capacity and put a financial burden on people. Yeah. Yes, that's what's taking place, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And this is a bit of a scoop for you as well, Jeff. Not many people know this, and I just mentioned it in passing, and I don't think people sort of absorbed it fully. But I had the experience of like coming back into Australia recently, and I had an exemption because I'd already tested positive for COVID when I had pneumonia when I was in the US, coming from Mexico to the US. And that was a very interesting experience. They had none of the quarantine staff or police stationed at. They were channeling all the flights in through Sydney, for Australia, through Sydney. And it's interesting what's happening. So they've been trying to manage it internally.
Yep.
But Serco, which is a British company, Serco Group PLC,
Yes.
out of the UK, is about to take over all the detention centres that are being built in Australia. And that's a real concern, because once they take control and they are driven by profit and monetisation, they run most of the prisons and the refugee detention centres all over the world. once they start monetising that and stepping it up, they'll be trying to put as many people in there as possible.
Yes, the privatised prison system is truly evil, and it's very unethical the way that's structured. They want a steady flow of inmates so they can guarantee a profit coming through. It's basically making money off human slavery, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's the whole prisons for profit model, and it doesn't work. But, you know, it's really questionable, you know, what they're up to as far as the detentions. They're spending millions of dollars. I don't know in the other states, but just in Queensland alone, they're building 2. There's one like a holding facility in Brisbane near the airport at Canberra, and then another big one out at Toowoomba, which is like the larger one for the storage capacity. You know, people should really be concerned about what they're getting. Everyone's sort of gone into the state of, this is the David Icke refers to like the totalitarian tiptoe, where they sort of like, they roll it back, and people think that's been a victory. And they've rolled it back in places like the UK and that sort of thing, and that creates a false sense of security because there's elections coming up and all sorts of stuff, so they're doing things that are favourably, and then they roll it back, and then they ratchet it right up again. You know what I mean?
It's a very scary prospect, what's taking place. And what would be your advice to people struggling? They feel uncertain about the future. They're filled with anxiety and paranoia and depression, a lot of people. The mental health, that's been the real pandemic. What would be your advice to people really battling at this current time?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jeff. And I know because I've sort of been through those spaces myself, you know what I mean? Particularly if you're isolated and you're alone. The first thing you need to try and do is try and get in connection with community and like-minded people, which is pretty much what we're doing here. But also for people to develop any sort of spiritual practice that they have. And I'm not like religious, but you know, any type of spiritual practice, whether that's getting out into nature or meditating or prayer or, you know, chanting or whatever that is, for people to, because that's the thing with tyrannical regimes. And you started the COVID thing. They like stop people from going to church and all that sort of stuff. So staying grounded in a practice for yourself to keep yourself centered, because that's the intention of the technology they're projecting onto us, to have us feel small, powerless, incompetent, and that we need them, and we don't need them. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
That's wonderful advice that can really benefit people. I really appreciate you coming on the show. This has been a powerful interview. Continued success. And if people want to look up more information, they can go to...
Yeah, they can go to my personal website, which is paulseals.com, SEILS. And then also for my music, it's jnrofficialmusic.com.
Brilliant. I recommend everybody look up those platforms. Thank you once again, and all the best.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jeff.